during the evenings. But I appreciate you all joining here on the call. I'm going to do a quick intro, and hopefully you can see the screen that I'm intending to share, which just has a high-level slide kicking us off today. We have two amazing guest speakers, and before we get started, I will recommend all of you to come on camera if physically possible. These are one of those rewarding opportunities you have to engage with industry experts leading the way from an innovation perspective. And so take full advantage of the session that we have today. But we do have Andrew Critchell and Charlie Berlin on the phone and here on video. And then we also will have, followed by this conversation, a little overview from recruiting on the opportunities at US Bank Elavon. So look forward to an engaging conversation today. Just for a little bit of housekeeping, we do have out on our website, which has recently been rebranded. We actually we created or revised our website to be mobile optimized, which is funny because we're talking about digital wallets today. But the mobile optimized website will give you access to all the great content that you expect from the Fintech Academy, as well as our events. And I say that to kind of highlight some of the events that we have coming up. I know everyone's coming back from spring break last week. Woohoo. But we have some events for you to look forward to the rest of the semester. So please go out to our website and register. And then here is a fun QR code for our group meet. We'll be chatting upcoming events, opportunities to connect, internships, job postings, etc., in direct communication. Last but not least, wanted to draw your attention to our live poll that's currently in the chat. So if you guys are familiar with how to navigate here on Teams, you can click on the chat. In the meeting chat, you'll see a poll kind of towards the top of it. Go ahead and submit your answer on how familiar you are with the concept of digital wallet technologies. And we'll get started. I don't know if I can actually share my screen of what I'm looking at from the word cloud on the poll, but it does seem like we have a pretty somewhat familiar crowd here on the line, Andrew and Charlie. So you got
Cool.
some folks that aren't novices. You have a couple of folks that said they're not that familiar, but for the most part, it sounds like we have a good baseline.
Awesome. Okay, great. So that's good. We'll be able to kind of zip through some of the basics and fundamentals and get to, some of the differentiating features out there that we think are cool. Awesome. So whenever you're ready for me to go, if it's all right, I might grab the ball and start a screen share. You just tell me when.
That works. I'm gonna stop sharing mine, and you can share yours.
All right. When? Let's see. All right. Moment of truth, everybody. We have a slideshow.
Yeah, you're good.
All right. Sweet. Yeah, thank you, Julia, for coming out. Julia is very, very nice. She attends our KSU mentoring meetings, so she has to listen to us talk all the time. The fact that she's here with us on like over the 6:30 at night on a Monday night, I appreciate that.
Yes, I had to come to y'all. Hey, Laura.
Hey,
bless you. Yeah. So good evening, everybody. Thank you, Laura, for the introduction. We will spend a little time kind of introducing ourselves here in just a minute. So if you don't come to these sessions very often, I hope this might convince you to start. The Georgia Fintech Academy is a wonderful organization that I personally, and US Bank and Elavon as an organization, have a great deal of respect and appreciation for. I think Laura might be the best executive director in the state of Georgia. Not just including fintech. I mean, she's pretty great. So hopefully the Fintech Academy understands how fortunate they are to have this leadership group, and how proud of the Georgia Fintech Academy we are at US Bank. So all of that fun stuff said, we're going to talk about digital wallets today, and we're going to talk a little bit about what they are today and kind of how we, create, sort of a scaffolding for intuition, like how should we think about digital wallets? How do Charlie and Andrew think about them? And then we're going to build more into the future of digital wallets. So we're going to do that kind of in three parts tonight. We're going to cover the basics. So for those of you who are somewhat familiar, you feel free to tune out this first part if you like. Charlie will get into some interesting stuff about data flow and why that's interesting. So maybe don't tune us all the way out. We'll move into some trends. We're just going to take a little bit of time on trends because I think if we're going to look at the future, we do have to kind of understand what's motivating the present. So we'll spend one slide on trends, and then we'll move into what we think of as the future according to Charlie and Andrew. And those are, what do we think the major features of digital wallets are going to look like, over the next 5 to 10 years? Why do we think those are going to be the things that pull through into the future? We'll talk a little bit about that. And, how might that impact our interactions with digital wallets? And how might that change the way that we think about the value proposition of a digital wallet? So one quick side note is on the right here, you'll see the innovation light bulb. So this is like a little thing that I use in most of my presentations where, like, if you just get sick of hearing me talk, or you just tune out and you're like, what were we talking about? The innovation light bulb is like your too long didn't read, 1-2 sentence sort of catch up so that you can sort of stay plugged into to what it is that we're talking about. Hi, Aisha. How's it going? So we're going to, if you do get lost along the way, check out the innovation light bulb to get you a nice little recap. So with that said, I'm Andrew Cantrell. I'm part of the Applied Foresights practice at US Bank. So I'm based in Atlanta. I'm a Georgia native, grew up in DeKalb County. So I'm happy to continue to live and work in the Atlanta area. I am part of enterprise innovation at the bank. So so I asked Charlie to join me. He's also part of the innovation group. And so we have a vested interest in Fintech. As innovators in the banking segment. If you are not familiar with US Bank and what we do, we've got a nice big payments arm. We've got consumer banking, corporate, commercial banking, wealth management, investment services, global fund, global trust. We've got all kinds of businesses in the financial services sector, all of which have significant Fintech implications. So we are excited to look at that from the perspective of the bank as it relates to innovation. And so we're going to try to share some of that stuff with you tonight, right? The things that we're good at, we think, or at least the things we try to be good at, is how do we share the future? So we will kind of tend towards the future versus sort of the nitty gritty nuts and bolts of how digital wallets look today. So hopefully that's interesting to you. So hand it over to Charlie, introduce yourself, and then kind of get going.
Hey all, Charlie Berlin, Assistant Vice President at US Bank, specifically working in enterprise innovation in the FinTech acceleration part of the innovation business. Really looking to connect the business lines that Andrew just went through with FinTech solutions that kind of cover gaps or bring forward new innovation and ways to reach our customers. My role is extremely exciting because I both work internally and understand the pain points and use leverage design thinking, which we're covering in the FinTech program that Andrew and I are both mentoring right now. And then by understanding the business line problems, I'm able to communicate with our external parties what the problems are and look to bring meaningful change to the bank. Oh, and I'm located in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Thanks, Charlie. All right, everybody, we have a problem. I think Charlie's going to run us through it.
Yeah, so when we think about digital wallets, first we got to step back and say, what's happening in the payment space that we would want a digital payment form. So when we look specifically in Georgia, we were able to see that as of 2022, Andrew, if you could hit the next, there we go.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go. There are 23.4 credit card frauds report that happened to every 10,000 residents within Georgia. So it's relatively small when you think about that population size. However, as you extrapolate that over the amount of money that is occurring, 25,000 credit card fraud events occur in the state of Georgia as of 2022 as well. So there's a high amount of frequency that's occurring, even though it's a small total population size. The 3-year change, as we look from 2019 to 2022, is a growth rate of 35.7%. So it's growing. So the problem is not flat. We're seeing this continued threat to the payment system. So when we look at Georgia as a whole in the entire United States, it's actually number 2 in the nation. And it's number 2 as in the second worst. So there is a great opportunity to provide a digital experience that potentially protects and enables payments to occur in a way that's safe for the customer.
I'll throw one quick thing in here, Charlie, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
The actual nominal loss of an average credit card fraud event is less than what it costs to remediate that fraud event. So when you think about like the actual cost of fraud, I don't have the number in front of me. Most credit card fraud is relatively small, but the cost to actually go back and fix it, whether it's to the merchant, to the original card holder, or to the financial institution that was the underwriting issuer of that credit, that's actually that tends to be to an order of magnitude more expensive. So 23.4 credit card fraud events per 10,000 residents in the state of Georgia doesn't seem super high nominally, but we're just about as bad as anybody else in the country. I think California is the only one that's worse than us. In any event, there you go.
So yeah, let's cover the basics of just some key information that will help set the landscape as we think about digital wallets and the payment providers and the entire experience. Oh, got poll popping up. All right, so we have 2.8 billion global digital wallet users as of last year, or excuse me, 2022. And we're expecting to see a compound annual growth rate of 27% through 2030. So huge opportunity, and it's estimated it could be larger than that. The adopters that we're seeing are Gen Z, and they use 79% of their 79% of Gen Z use digital wallets. So we think about Apple Pay, Google Pay, the app stores. Those experiences continue to expand and draw in more users in just intuitive experiences. So when we start looking at what happens when you abstract yourself from cash, the top right, you'll see that you spend 33% more when you use a digital wallet at a restaurant, 17% more when you're at a retailer, and 4% more when you're at the grocery store. And 4% might not seem like a large percentage, but when you're separating yourself from cash and then going to the grocery store, and again, this is all groceries across the US, it's quite a large amount of money. And so in 2023, $9 trillion has been spent using digital wallets. So again, huge market, huge opportunity, and a lot of money that's kind of being moved through these digital rails.
So I threw a question out there in the chat. So I was kind of curious, are folks generally familiar with the idea of like an abstracted from cash transaction effect? Like what does that do? Like what do we mean by that? Think of like a thumbs up, thumbs down, hand raise, any of those things? Laura says she's familiar, not familiar. I'll just elaborate just a little bit because I think it's an important aspect of how we think about digital wallets. So if we look at behavioral studies around spending, and these have been done in multiple domains over the last 25 years, the closer we are to a cash transaction, the more pain we feel in that transaction. So if I'm going to buy a Georgia Fintech Academy t-shirt from Laura and I have to actually hand her a $20 bill, let's say, I actually feel slightly more purchase guilt, and we can behaviorally demonstrate this. It's like, it's part of the sort of body of knowledge that I actually had to hand that cash over. So I have this sort of guilt effect that I feel. Now, if I use a credit card, interestingly, right, and I tap a credit card, I don't have to hand Laura any cash. I just tap my card and I go. So behaviorally, what we found is that people don't feel that quite the same amount of guilt, I guess, if they don't have to hand something over in order to receive a good. Digital wallets are an additional layer of abstraction from the card. So you're now 2 layers away from cash when you're making a transaction, right? So you're purchasing something at a restaurant or you're, shopping online or whatever it is that you're doing. That secondary layer of abstraction from cash tends to make people spend more. And so, we see that sort of behaviorally across. And so Naya says cash abstraction is basically debit cards and absolutely right. So every layer we move away from actually moving physical cash, that abstraction effect tends to see people spend more. And so these digital wallets of the future do indicate, at least in early data, that people are spending more when using a digital wallet. Sorry.
That's a great point, Andrew. Thanks for the clarification. I think that's very important as we start looking at what are digital wallets and how do we get to use them in the marketplace. So if you go to the next slide.
Sure.
Yeah, so digital wallets can be split up to roughly 4 groups. We got mobile wallets. These are device specific. And when we think about these types of wallets, we think about Apple Pay and Google Pay, where it's built into your hardware and it's kind of seamless in the experience as it's a part of your operating model that you've already when you're using your phone. And we have online wallets. These are web-based, app-based, and they're e-commerce payments. So these would be examples of PayPal and Amazon Pay. An interesting thing about Amazon Pay is it was originally a closed loop where you're only able to really put money onto your digital wallet and spend it within Amazon. We now see Amazon has this has a rail that enables them to use their Amazon Pay across the platform, beyond their platform. Then we also have crypto wallets, which are gaining a lot of noise right now. And these secure your digital currencies and NFTs. Good examples of crypto wallets will be MetaMask and Coinbase. And then we have bank wallets. Bank wallets are offered online and they enable additional banking features, and sometimes you're able to get rewards at point of sale, and they enable you to just kind of receive coupons and experience your debit card in a new way. An example would be Pays, which is what US Bank and Elavon use, and Chase Pay. Okay, so getting into we've talked about cash abstraction, and you're kind of curious, well, if we were all of a sudden thinking about spending and we're spending more money when we're using digital wallets, why would we want to use a digital wallet if we're so abstracted from cash? Well, abstraction from the physical transaction that's occurring protects you as well. So when we think about stepping away from handing someone cash, there's all types of environmental risks there. And then you've got protection then with a credit card. And now we go a step further into a digital wallet. Your information is tokenized. So when you look at your digital wallet and you pull up, say, your credit card, you only see the last 3 numbers. You don't have all the information that you would normally have on the plastic card. So thank you, Andrew, for showing your credit card, but it's a token. So there's very little information for someone to actually steal.
Yep, you can't steal it. It's just a token.
Exactly. So if I held up my actual credit card, there would be my card information. If you're in person, there's the metallic strip, and there's the plastic card itself, which is also subject to potential fraud and theft. So by creating a layer of abstraction from those tools, you're able to further protect yourself, which is an important part as we think about how digital wallets may change in the future. But speaking to what they provide right now, you get you get a faster speed, because instead of having someone say in a very analog, say you're paying for something and you have to actually write down your credit card number and provide the expiration date and the 3-letter code in the back, which we've all had those experiences where you're paying online. So all of a sudden, instead, a token is created and it's passed through the payment process, and the token doesn't need to be deciphered. It's just automatically routed. So the speed is much faster. I'm sure we've experienced tapping a terminal. It feels faster, and that's because it is. There's loyalty, like coupons that you're able to receive by using a digital wallet. A good example is your Starbucks rewards or your Caribou rewards for the people in the Midwest. And these reward you for your payment for using their wallet. And you're able to kind of have that seamless interaction with a coupon that would originally require you to have coupon book or some type of representation of the coupon, and it all becomes very seamless. And this is really a centralized experience within a digital wallet. Again, thinking of your Starbucks card is offered by Starbucks, so you've got a digital wallet at Starbucks, and it's just that one experience, closed environment. And then finally, one of the more important reasons, which I've hit on a couple of times, is security. Your payment is tokenized. Your information is passed then through this token, which is encrypted. It's very difficult if someone were to intervene in that payment stream and receive the information, it would be encrypted. Whereas if someone were to receive or interject in the payment process and you wrote down all the information, they would have that information at hand.
Yeah, so like a way to think about it, you know, we've all heard about credit card skimming, right? Where like you swipe your card and you skim. Like most credit card fraud events happen with either card not present transactions, where somebody is like literally hand jamming credit card numbers into a keyboard, or with a credit card skimmer on a mag swipe. The reason is it's literally like all the information on your credit cards right there. Credit card number, security number, expiry date, your full name and everything. It's like the easiest way to steal your information. So this tokenizing everything and saying you have to be able to decrypt this token is a great deal safer, much harder to steal that information. And even if you do, what do you do with an encrypted token, right? Not the easiest thing in the world. Charlie, you want to walk through the cycle here?
Yeah, I'll walk through it to the best of my knowledge. I don't have as much experience in this as Andrew does. So Andrew, if I misspeak or underrepresent a step, please feel free to correct me.
Yeah.
So if we're looking here at Android Pay, and so this would be you take your cell phone and you've got Google Pay on it, and you look to go pay at the terminal. You would tap your phone on the terminal, which you'd see as the first cog there, the merchant NFC terminal and POS. The token is then generated from your phone and passed to the POS system. The merchant then processes the payment and it just receives this token and it passes the token along to the acquirer. The acquirer processes the payment and passes the token along to the token service provider, which is step 5. The token service provider then collects your information and passes it to the bank, who already has that information. Again, it's a very secure process. And then the payment is sent to through the network, step 7 and 8, back to the merchant and the merchant terminal. And so the payment is really very secure when you look at a token being passed through just routed through the system. With very little information, and again, it's encrypted, so which provides a lot of security.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing to kind of lean on here versus like a card swipe, if you swipe your card at a terminal, so instead of doing this, instead of tapping your phone or tapping your card or whatever, when you swipe, that information gets recorded and passed. So your credit card number, and it's probably going to be hashed by your gateway, but let's assume your credit card number is still rolling across this entire network. It's still the primary point of entry. When you're tapping with a digital wallet in particular, you're paying with a token that doesn't get decrypted until it so for all intents and purposes on our end, right? When we think about security and like sort of data entry point security, tokenizing that payment method all the way through the acquiring network, all the way back to your issuing bank, provides it like an entire layer. It doesn't even get decrypted until you get to whoever underwrote that credit to check and see if you've got funds available. And it's just fundamentally more secure. You're just not sending your payment details across the rail. You're just sending that token ID. So thank you, Charlie, for that. So
Andrew, I have a quick question.
Sure.
You guys hit on, swiping the card at a point of sale, and then obviously, leveraging wallet digitally for payment. What about the EMV chip, and how does that differ from a security perspective from the tokenization that we're talking about here?
Yeah, so EMV chip technology in terms of like EMV tokenization is similar. Generates a token at the event, right? So the token gets provisioned via a chip. I think the only major difference there, like NFC tokenization and EMV chip tokenization are similar. And if you look at the test bed that they actually run through with the networks with like Visa and MasterCard as their certifying devices, EMV tokens are relatively similar in terms of how that payment security, I guess you'd think like that sort of class of security works. The thing that I think most financial institutions want to think about around NFC style payments is there's one major advantage to NFC style payments to than EMV chips, and I would love for somebody to guess this. If anybody has any idea, why would banks and payment gateways and similar, why would we want to pay with an NFC tap versus an EMV chip? We'll give it the obligatory 10 seconds. You can drop it in chat if you want. Let me actually open my chat so I can see it. Roughly 10 seconds. Well, credit card charges per swipe. It's a great guess, Jacob. It does, right? So actually the input method, and we're talking about interchange rates here, the input method for how you pay does actually determine the interchange rate that you pay. So if you swipe, it's actually a higher risk transaction, so the fees are higher for the merchant and so forth. The thing that I would suggest is probably the preferred method for NFC contactless readers is everybody has one on their phone, right? You don't have to have a chip receiver. You don't have to be able to shove your card in somewhere, right? You just tap it on any NFC reader device, which there are far more NFC reader devices out there. If we think of our smartphones as NFC readers, as there are payments terminals, right? So it's much easier with the right software to interact with a near field communications device because the vast majority of us already have one and we carry it around in our back pocket all the time, right? So there you go. All right, so let's talk a little bit about trending. I'm going to do a quick time check here. It's 6:55-ish. So I think we're okay. How long do I have until, is it 7:15? We're going to take a pause?
Yep, that's correct.
Cool. All right. So we got 20 minutes to get through the future. That sounds good. All right. So this is a consolidated trendscape, as we like to call them. I would suggest not reading all of this right now. We'll send this to you. You can read it later if you like. But I do want to hit on a few things. And the reason we threw all this information in there was, one, so that we can send it to you. And two, because we want to show you that there are a lot of trends out there that are pointing towards a digital wallet future. At least the way that we look at it. I do want to point out up front, like when we think about all the trends, that's a great gift, by the way. All the trends that we think sort of lead us into this version of the future that we're going to talk about here in a minute. Passwordless futures are key, right? When we think about today, it's almost inconceivable that we could think about a world where you don't have to have a username and password to authenticate into something. That's just how we've done it for like 20 plus years in the digital world. But we do think a passwordless future is a part of a pretty significant trend momentum space that we're following. We also think that there is an opportunity to tokenize like everything out there. And we think that there are some organizations like the Open Wallet Foundation is just one example of like cross-industry, nonprofit, like big-time collaborator, players like Microsoft are showing up to these foundations to say, how do we create a model for scalable open wallets that allow people to begin to tokenize all of these different parts of our lives? So I'm going to call out three key trends beyond the key insight that I think are worth mentioning. So the first one is tokenizing anything. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. So this isn't necessarily the blockchain plug where you're like, oh, you can put everything on the chain. That's not necessarily what we're saying, but we do think if you can tokenize a state driver's license, if you can tokenize your payments information, why not your health insurance card, right? Why not your car insurance? Why not any other thing that you may need to carry with you about your data? Why not tokenize that in some form or fashion and protect that at least from a tokenization layer from theft? Most of us would probably feel uncomfortable if somebody stole our healthcare information. They've got your policy number, they've got your group number, they know who you are and who's on your policy. So a number of things, if we think about stuff that we carry with us, like we just don't really want to lose that. And so we think, or we'll suggest to you today, that a tokenization effort to create a sort of a validator, verifier, issuer network is something we think is going to be important to this particular future. How long do you think it would take to tokenize everything? Good question, Charles. I don't know. There are some really good examples of organizations that are building sort of semi-decentralized verifier issuer model chains. So this is like, it's not the blockchain. It's not, sort of the pure layer one public blockchain when we think about things like self-sovereign identity, but it is a more consolidated, perhaps layer two level efficiency on-chain solution to tokenize a variety of different things. We're going to get to some fun examples here in just a minute. I don't think it's actually as hard as folks might think it is. Now, if you're going to go try to mint an NFT on the Ethereum chain today, that's going to be a big pain. But if you're using Microsoft's platform, probably going to be a little easier, right? Blockchain's not the most user-friendly in the world. Places like Microsoft are. So that's the way we think the future might be leading. Two other points I'll make here. Sorry, go ahead, Laura.
No, I just had a question around the user impacts for tokenization. Like,
sure,
it's typically seamless from a user perspective, a user end perspective, and the tokenization, the de-tokenization is something that happens on the back end without much friction for the customer, right?
Oh, totally. So, like, if you've ever added a credit card to your wallet, like if you've ever actually added one to your digital wallet on your phone, like it's easy enough that I can do it, right? I mean, I can log in my banking app and be like, I want to add this to my phone, and bam, it's there. Now, if I wanted to mint an NFT, right, and I wanted to do that by myself on chain, layer one, and I got to pay the gas fees, much more complicated. But when we're talking about tokenizing inside environments that are built for it, I think, Laura, to your point, quite a lot easier. It's easy enough for me to tokenize like literally all of my credit cards, my SkyMiles account, my Walgreens accounts on here. What else do I have? I got a bunch of stuff, right? Hotel rewards, everything. So second key trend I want to call out here is, and Charlie mentioned this earlier, is generational adoption. In general, if we look at boomers and Gen X, digital wallet adoption is relatively low. My dad's 72 this year, and he's like, no, I'm good. He's just not super interested in a digital wallet, and that's okay. But for most millennials and Gen Z, we're seeing very high adoption rates and increasing adoption rates within the millennial segment. So if we think about digital wallet adoption, I'm also an elder millennial, and if we think about digital wallet adoption, what we're seeing is the demographics that are increasing in purchasing power and will continue to increase in purchasing power over the next 20 years are already either full or moderate adopters of this technology. So demographic shifts are important to this future. Last thing I'll mention is embedded payments. You may have actually noticed this as you've gone through like your shopping online, or you're checking out at a store somewhere, or you are even you're on Discord. Like there's all kinds of stuff that you can pay for just on a Discord server, for example. The industry is largely moving towards things like embedded payments. If you look at banking and financial services organizations generally, embedded payments is something everybody talks about pretty regularly. Like it's part of our strategy. How do you take the things that banks are really good at, safety, trust, money movement, all that cool stuff, and how do we put that in digital experiences somewhere else where it's relevant to that experience? And so that's the whole idea of embedded payments, right? How do you take the ability to do commerce and then take that to where the value exchange is actually happening, versus saying like, hang on a second, let me go to my banking app and move the money around and then pay you over here. So we think that embedded payments is actually a major trend line for the future of digital wallets. So that's enough for trends. You guys can read this stuff later. Let's talk about the actual future as we see it. Now we're going to treat this briefly in 4 parts. So this is 4 parts of the future as Charlie and Andrew see it. Major feature of the future number 1 is passwordless authentication. So what most of us experience today is what we would think of as one-to-N identity solutions. So when we say one-to-N, that's like sign in with Google, right? How many times have you clicked like sign in with Apple, sign in with Google, sign in with Facebook? So that's one identity credential provider allowing you to authenticate to N number, so some number of applications or experiences. And that's kind of the way the world works today. So things like SSO, Like if you have SSO at work where it's a single sign-on platform, or like sort of federated identity, single sign-on, that's one to N, right? You're using one primary authenticator to allow you to have access to a number of things. We think that goes eventually, not overnight by any stretch of the imagination, but we think that that might go the way of the dodo. We think that's going to go away in the long run. Why would I want to trust all of my authentication in a single organization? What we think we're moving towards, and we've seen some really interesting developments in the digital identity space, is what we think of as reusable passwordless authentication. So if any of you use a password manager on your phone, like I use 1Password because I can't remember all the passwords that I have. One of the things you might have noticed is that a number of the big password providers in their latest update have now created an opportunity for you to use pass keys. And that is the precursor to passwordless auth. So if you have a pass key that's meant to your phone, this is your device. Once you're authenticated to your device, you don't have to go through the authentication protocol. That is the early version of an end-to-end future. And that is to say you'll have a pass key for all of these things, right? They'll be tied to a device or to a digital wallet, which is what we believe. That digital wallet will be tied to you, and that is how you will functionally access all of these different digital experiences. It could be watching TV, could be shopping, could be taking classes online, right? There's a pass key for that, if you will. So if you're not familiar with pass keys, and you haven't jumped into digital identity, it's a fascinating space. I think the back half of this decade is going to be a really interesting one for how we start to decouple from this username and password monstrosity that we're in today. I think most people have well over 200 username and SIN passwords across the internet today. That's just the average person. So you can imagine just being able to do away with those and how awesome that would be. Second thing, and there were some questions here around like how long do you think it would be able to, how long before we can tokenize everything? I don't think we're that far away. And the idea here, this is actually something that Microsoft put together. It's a pretty cool sketch art. If we think about things like how do we, what kind of things do we want to carry with us in an analog wallet, right? The traditional analog wallet, like the one that I have in my back pocket or that we carry in our purses or whatever, right? ID and payments. Those are kind of the two fundamental things that we tote around with us. We might also have some other stuff in there, like a loyalty card. We might have, some insurance, or like, if I get hurt, please call this number, like some of those kind of things in our wallets. But there's relatively finite space for the amount of information that we can carry around with us. Digital wallets start to decouple us from that limitation. And so what we would suggest as a second feature of this particular future is that we can tokenize and carry with us a much more significant amount of information that today we don't necessarily think about carrying around with us. Imagine applying for a job and being able to immediately verify the degree that you have in the resume, your work history, and so forth, just with the tap of your digital wallet. Hey, here's my education credential. Here are the places that I've worked. These are the dates, and so forth and so on. We can think about all kinds of different information that we put on our LinkedIn. So like imagine if your LinkedIn profile was just a token on your phone. You could be like, boom, that's me. Now you know me. So that's kind of the future that we're aiming towards here. Third thing that I'd suggest is that what we think of as commercial off-the-shelf devices, so COTS devices, ultimately form the transaction, what we think of as the transaction substrate for digital wallet transactions. We might not just be transacting in dollars and cents. We might be transacting in information or a number of other things. But if there's one thing I don't want to do, is I don't want to tap somebody else's phone with my untokenized credit card information to pay for something. And so the fact that we're able to actually run like a payment kernel software on a commercial off-the-shelf device, which is like the iPhone that I carry around with me every day, allows us to start to transact from device to device. So if we go back and we think about why EMV chips are great on a credit card, they tokenize the payment method at the point of entry, but you have to have a payments receptacle for that. You have to have a payments terminal that has an EMV port in it and so forth. In the future, there's some good examples of it happening today. In fact, using commercial off-the-shelf devices like tablets and iPhones and similar as the primary method for transactions is the likely future, right? We've already got infrastructure at scale. We carry it around with it every day. And it's a fantastically safe way to pay when our payment kernels and our payment information is tokenized. So this is the scale's already there, guys. We don't have to overhaul our full payments infrastructure because we all carry this stuff around with us every day. Last thing we'll mention, non-fungible tokens aren't just for Bored Apes. So if anybody bought a Bored Ape NFT out there, hopefully it's still worth meaningful amount of money. Good chance it might not be. We think that NFTs get a pretty bad rap. And so when we're talking about tokenizing things like your diploma, or we're talking about tokenizing your health insurance card or similar, right? We're actually talking about a non-fungible token. And there's a really good example of this from about a year and a half ago. The National University of Mongolia, of all places, right, issued their diplomas as a soul-bound non-fungible token. So if you matriculated from the National University of Mongolia in 2022, you actually got an NFT that said, "This is my degree." It's soul-bound, it's non-fungible, it's going to go with you forever. And as we get into these verified issuer validator futures, right, these passwordless tokenized futures, being able to say, "I have this degree," is an irrefutable way to transfer your data and to identify yourself. Without jeopardizing, ideally, the security of your data. So we do think that non-fungible tokens are likely to be a part of this future. Now, the thing that's really cool about all four of these domains, and the part that I'll sort of wrap up on here, is that all four of these features, passwordless authentication, tokenize anything, consumer off-the-shelf scalability, or commercial off-the-shelf scalability, and non-fungible tokens all already work pretty nicely together today. So if we can see a future, right, and this is what we try to do in innovation at US Bank, if we can see a future where these trend lines begin to converge, we can start to see, we think, the major features of the future of digital wallets. Now, if we put all this together, we talked about our four features here. And so what does that actually mean for us on the right? That means no more usernames and passwords. It means no more sign up and give me everything that you ever, like when you sign up to buy shirts or something online, they're like, "Where do you live? What's your blood type? Would you mind subscribing to these 400 email rings?" Like, like that whole sign up process, forget it. You don't have to do it anymore, right? In this particular future. You can pay with your smartphone or tablet directly to another smartphone or tablet using a digital wallet. Somebody might steal your token, but good luck trying to figure out how to decrypt that thing to do something with it in this future. And digital wallets, we think, become fundamentally far more than just a payment method. They become a method of access. They become a method of identification and secure data transport. So digital wallets, we think, have a much greater role to play in the future than they have played so far. So we're hopeful, we're bullish, I guess you'd say, on digital wallets of the future. So all that said, right, the last thought I'll leave you with is this future isn't scaled yet, still being created. There's things like the OWF and various big tech platforms that are still trying to build into this future. There's some really interesting things going on with digital identity. There's some really interesting things going on with what we think of as like semi-decentralized blockchain environments. What we would suggest for those of you studying fintech today, for those of you who say fintech is a space that I want to go into, I want to build into, this future is a future that you absolutely can get into and build part of the future yourself. So if you've ever thought about, hey, I'd like to actually be a part of building what digital wallets are going to look like and what they're going to mean to the consumer today, How are they going to put their education in there? How is their passport going to be in their digital wallet? How are we going to, make sure that we are properly tokenizing and protecting people so that they can transact and participate in digital and physical commerce more seamlessly? This future is absolutely ripe for bright, enterprising, interested entrepreneurs to look in this space and build this future. So if this does resonate with you, we would say go out and do it, because we think it's a really important part of how we're going to do commerce and really how we're going to do digital life in the future. I've ended exactly at 7:15, Laura. Not bad.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And what an interesting presentation today. And I love that you guys start off with some stats as well to kind of bring everything together. I think, since we have just a few minutes before we transition to Barry and talking about opportunities at US Bank Elavon, just wanted to kind of gauge from the folks that are on the line, what stuck out to you today from today's presentation? What did you learn? Go ahead and submit that in the word chat, word cloud response that we have in the poll, which you guys should hopefully see.
Or even better, what did you think you were going to learn that you didn't, right? Because then that's good for me and Charlie to know about, right? What did you want to hear about and we skipped it? Let's see, I'll stop. I think I can probably stop the screen share, right? Yeah, because it's just a Q&A slide. Let's see.
All right, I see tokenization, digital payments, the launch of a bank. Future is bright.
Okay.
Payment system, future, trajectory of information.
I have a question generally, and if the people want to drop it in the chat, I'm just curious to know, does this future sound like a future you want to be a part of? Like, does this sound like a good future, a bad future, or kind of like a whatever future? Like, where do you land? So I'd be curious to know kind of how people feel about it. Oh, we got an all caps yes from Will. Thanks, Will. We agree too.
You got a definitely and a yes. That's good. No pessimistic folks in the chat.
Yeah, and I will, and just so you know, I will most definitely PDF this thing and send it out so you can refer back to it, if you'd like to. So we'll be happy to get this this content out to you to go back through. Another thing I'd say briefly, just like as we're wrapping up, is if any of you are interested in continuing the conversation, you have certain segments about it that you think like, hey, I'd really like to learn more about this. We would be happy to continue that conversation. And so find us on LinkedIn if you like. Shoot us an email, andrew.cantrell@US Bank. I think it's charles.berlin@US Bank, so it's pretty easy to remember. Send that stuff our way, and we'll be glad to interact with you if you think that's interesting to you.
Oh, guys, I mean, definitely take them up on the offer.
Please do. Please do. We're around. I'm here in Atlanta. I see Laura probably at least a couple of times a year. So we are in the Georgia FinTech Academy orbit. If you would like to, oh yeah, there you go. Lauren's got my LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'm gonna put
right
both
there.
of their profiles here in the chat, so you have no excuse to not connect with them on LinkedIn at least.
Yeah, and Charlie and I have like two of the coolest jobs at the bank too. So one of the fun things about FinTech is that even if you don't go work at a specific, small startup FinTech organization, you can still do a lot of cool stuff in FinTech at places like US Bank and Elavon. So, FinTech is a pretty wide remit. There's a lot of really fun stuff happening in the space.
Well, that's a great segue. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Charlie, for tonight. Really appreciate the time you spent with us. And I think we have Barry out here on the line. Barry, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Hello. Great job, Charlie, Andrew. Thank you. So I guess what I want to do is I'm in recruiting. I am here in the Atlanta area. So again, I hire for all tech positions throughout US Bank / Elavon. So again, I guess my questions for you would be slightly a little different. What you've heard so far is, are you interested in opportunities at US Bank? How do you go about getting some of the opportunities we do have? So there's several different ways we can look at that. We end up hiring as well as internships, permanent positions, as well as contract positions. So the question comes down to, how does Fintech employees or candidates have an opportunity of getting into US Bank? That's the easy part. The question is, do you have the correct skill sets from a technical standpoint? And are you asking the right questions when you're going through your interviewing process? So with that being said, I'll go ahead and take questions so I can make sure I'm addressing those concerns that you may have or those questions you want to know. No questions? Well, let me throw one out there for you then. Let's
I have a
just say,
question.
sure, feel free.
So, I currently work for US Bank in the credit card department.
Yes.
But I will be getting my Fintech certification and bachelor's in December. So I was just really wanting to know, like, how can I like transition when I get my certification and graduate?
Great question. A couple of things. Since you're already working at US Bank, and I'm quite sure you're making contacts for certain areas that you're interested in, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now that you're making those contacts, you need to let them know, hey, this is what you're interested in when it comes to dealing with creating new opportunities for yourself. Some of them may say, well, we're looking for someone with more experience. And you may run into that and you're saying that's fine and great. However, how can I get more experience if you don't give me the opportunity? So now you end up looking at, since you're already in, either the internships or some of the programs that we do have where you can actually come in as an associate. Now, coming in as an associate, you're working with individuals that are senior or mid-level that can also enhance your skills from a technical standpoint to get you where you need to get to. So again, I would definitely say continue to make the contacts of individuals in different areas of the company, making sure you find out exactly what you want to do, making sure you understand exactly what they're looking for, and then parlay that to your skill set as far as getting in the right opportunity.
Thank you so much.
No problem. That was the easy part.
Barry, is there anywhere students should go? I know we have a jobs site on the GeorgiaFintechAcademy.org website, but in regards to internships and open roles, can you speak to any opportunities that are currently out there?
Yes, well, we do have opportunities right now, not only in Atlanta, but also in Minneapolis, as well as other parts of the country. So we do have positions that are internships as well as apprentice, what we consider to be associate positions. They are on the website. Normally what happens is that with the internships, we have 2 parts of the season or 2 parts of the year that we put positions out there. With graduation coming up about May, so again, the positions should be out there on the website. I would probably say the second week of April. So you may want to start looking at that. One of the things I would tell candidates as well, when you see positions out there and they're asking for, let's say, 2 years of experience and you know you only have one or you only have the intern, don't become discouraged. Still apply. Here's the reason why. The projects that you may have worked on at school or again through FinTech, again, that could be more resources. And again, those projects that you've worked on could be exactly what we're looking for here at US Bank as well as Elavon. So again, don't become discouraged. The key to it is, hey, have confidence within yourself. Know what you're talking about. So let's just say you go through an interview and an individual saying, well, we look for someone with more experience. Ask them this question. Looking at the project that you're looking at, and bringing someone in that's going to cost probably, let's say, about 100K, where I'm coming in and only looking at half of that, and yet I'm more aggressive, more determined to learn that particular technology. What is the cost of that? So now what happens is you have managers start thinking, hold up, if I can only spend half and yet still get the quality or the level of candidates that I'm looking for from a technical standpoint, and you sold yourself from that standpoint, it makes it that much easier for you.
Barry, we got a couple of questions in the chat just around skill sets, certification, what type level of experience does U.S. Bank prioritize when considering candidates? Any thoughts around that generally?
Again, the level of experience, again, coming in from fintech, most times the positions at U.S. Bank, they're looking for someone with skills. But again, if you're focusing on the intern or the associate level, you're coming in from the ground floor, so you're getting that knowledge, you're getting that understanding. Those are positions you want to find more so to attract yourself to, because you want to find that mentor who's going to help you through your process as far as matriculating where you want to get to long term. Those positions there. When you start looking at skills, the skills going to vary across the board. So the key to it is, okay, if I'm a Java individual and I want to sit there and design different things, what tools have I worked with that are going to help me to focus on look at those particular opportunities in certain areas? For example, if you look at Andrew and Charles, when they start talking about the cards, it's what tools or what have they developed as far as using that? What language have they used? Because again, you want to find out what they're looking at, what they're hopefully planning on going to. Some may be Java, some may be Microsoft Office products, some could be a variety of different tools. So again, understanding what they're doing, how they're using it, making sure that again, it's a position or an opportunity where you can become a creator, not just a maintenance person, but a creator. Those are the things you want to look for and ask questions about.
Good. I know it's getting kind of late. Are there any other questions for Barry before we wrap up? And Barry, I hope you don't mind. I feel like I did this the last time you were on the call. I put your LinkedIn in the chat. So
No, that's more
you
than
were
fine. You're
very
fine.
okay. I was like, you were open previously, so hopefully you still are. I
I
appreciate
have a
that.
question.
Yes.
So, like, I'm a CIS major, and I wanted to know, like, if like fintech is like, if they have job opportunities related in my field, or is it just heavily around like finance majors and stuff like that?
We have positions across the board. So let me ask you this question. What, and this is something I always ask individual, what would be the ideal opportunity for you if you can choose it yourself? You have a
Like, in
CS, you have a computer science degree. Yeah, what is it that you want to do?
because CIS is very broad, and it's like it has, you can do like, it's business plus technology. So I'm really open to anything, honestly, as long as I could have like an insight in my work, my field, being on the business side plus the technical side. So to me, I'm open to anything.
Okay, all right, and the reason I asked that question, because again, I'll ask even a seasoned person that what you want to do is you want to kind of define the area or the environment you like to do. You want to define, hey, if I want to do new technology or I want to sit here and do maintenance, you want to find an area that's going to give you the challenge that you're looking for. Going into the door and someone's to ask you that question, what is it that you're looking for? What is it that you want to do? And you're like, I can do anything. That's not going to benefit you as a whole. Because just because you said you can do anything, they're looking at, okay, what is your vision? What is it that you really want to do? What is going to make you happy? Because if I can find something that's going to make you happy or find something that's going to intrigue you, therefore I have a better idea of where I need to place you at. Therefore, I can see you grow within that area, enhancing your skills. Not only that, but again, hopefully you're looking at you excelling within that environment. So
Mm-hmm.
try to define what you really want to do a little bit. And again, I know you may not know everything, and no one really does, but again, at least it gives them an idea to work with, or at least to start with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because like even though I do major in computer information systems, my background is in cybersecurity, but still this field kind of confuses me a little bit because there is so broad, you can do so much with it. So like I wanted to get into like analyst roles or like software
Mm-hmm.
development roles or just something related in the technology field, like IT field. And yeah.
And again, that's up to you want to do. You want to inform them, hey, I want to look at the analyst portion of it, because again, that's the software side as opposed to the hardware side. So that's why I say you need to make sure you have a roadmap or have an understanding of what your love or what your passion would be, which side. Because again, going into cybersecurity, someone may say, well, we want to put you into the maintenance part or the hardware part. And you're like, that's not what I like, after you've spent time and effort in that. And then all of a sudden, once you get to the software side and realize, hey, I like to do this. I like to make changes. I like to go in and look at the code. I like to go in and find shortcuts through the back doors and things of that nature. So again, having that concept of having that idea will help tremendously.
No, that's very good advice, Barry. I know for myself, I fell into project management and I fell in love with cybersecurity, which is so weird saying out loud and admitting to you guys. And PCI compliance, and I was able to get a bank their first PCI compliant rock even. But I think having a little bit of perspective on what you're interested in and just in aiming for it that way and honing in the conversation that way definitely helps. I think we had did someone else have a question or raise a hand? I thought I saw. I know, Andrew, you put something in the chat here.
Yeah, I was just responding to a wallet question, sort of in line as we go along, right? So Barry's much better at sort of talent coaching than I am. So I was like, I'll just keep going on the wallet side, in case somebody has any questions.
Staying in your lane, is that what they say? I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more like you let the professionals do the thing that they're good at, right? And I'll do my wallet stuff in the chat.
Well, we are past time, and I appreciate you guys hanging out so late. We will be sending out, for those that registered, a link to the recording of this session. Andrew, you mentioned sharing with us a copy of the presentation. That'd be great if you are able to do that. Andrew, Charlie, Barry, thank you all for your time, spending time with us in the FinTech Academy this evening. And good night, everyone.
Good night. Thanks for having us, Laura.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right, thank you.
Take care.